This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Dye Hansen, management consultant, and with me co-host Christine Salvo, therapist, certified mediator, and certified hypnotherapist.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. And today on the show, we have Kara Duffy. And Kara is an accomplished strategic leader with 20 years of product merchandising operations, organizational, customer relations, project management, and business planning experience. She has helped produce successful results for both large and global brands, such as Quicksilver, Reebok, Puma, to name a few, and local startups servicing the sport, fashion, action sports, nonprofit, beauty, marketing, and food service industries. Welcome to the show, Kara.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So, I really liked talking to you prior when we were screening you for the show because you brought up such a good point about business. And that's the simple fact that metrics are terrifying.
Yes. Yeah, so many business owners get so stuck when they think about having to measure themselves versus just be creating something that they love.
I was going to ask you to start right there, which is like define metrics. What's metrics for the listeners that are like, I own a business, I've never heard of that word. What am I missing?
Yeah, great question. A metric is simply anything that you can measure to see if you're actually achieving the results that you want. Like, how are you measuring your success? So a metric could be like sales per month. It could be how many followers you have, how many clients you're working with. It really is endless. So there's so many things that you can measure, but it's about choosing which metrics matter for your company and what you view success as.
Okay. And so it's not necessarily, you're not going to use metrics for like taxes. You're going to use it more for like a business plan or growth goal or something like that.
Yeah, and I love using metrics in breaking things down so they're bite-sizable. When we look at what we want our sales goals to be for a whole year, like I'm sure a lot of people are planning 2021. And when you see a number that says 500,000, 1 million, 10 million, that's a really overwhelming number to achieve. And so if we can break that down to something that you can measure on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, it's way easier to actually get there.
Okay, I like it. So what would be an example of a way that you might use this? So we'll take my business, for instance. So I'm a marriage and family therapist, but I have 3 branches to my business. So therapy, mediation, and hypnosis. Mm-hmm. So using my business model, how would we kind of look at metrics and kind of explore that a little bit?
Well, the first question I would ask you would be, what would success look like for each of those businesses to you? So one metric you might have would be how many clients you serve as in your therapy role. And then in mediation, it might be how quickly are you resolving working with different clients that you have. What are some things that would equal success to you?
Wow, I like that. Well, you're right. I don't really think of metrics much. I just kind of willy-nilly go about it, but it's actually really important to me. So my private therapy practice, I'm booked out until January 5th. So no issue there. I mean, I have more work than I know what to do with, honestly, in that area. My mediation business, I have a contract that I've been doing for 5.5 years, well-oiled machine. But success in that area would look like more private clients and less of my court clients. So I have a contract with a court. I go there every Friday. But I really want to be doing that in the community where people just know my name and come to me. So any outside business there, because I only do the court business. And then for hypnosis, I just opened a second office for that. And it was going pretty steady for a minute there. I had at least 1 or 2 a week, and then it kind of died off, which I can't really explain that. So those 2 branches of my business are like slow trickles. Even though one's a well-oiled machine, I'm not really doing anything outside of that.
No,
Did that help at all?
That's super helpful. Yeah, because what we think about metrics sometimes, we think about the end result versus the work we have to do to get even like halfway points or 3/4 of the way to achieve that end goal. So if anyone's stuck having people come in the door, having new customers and new clients, one metric that you can look at is how many people have I talked to about my business this week or today.
Oh, I like this.
So simply how many outreaches are you doing? How many new contacts have you created? How many times have you shared? We get so worked up about sales, and really it's just sharing. At the end of the day, if you share, you will get where you need to go.
Okay, I like this. And I think that's great advice for people listening as well.
Good.
So what should people be sharing about their business? What would that look like?
Oh my goodness. I love having conversations about sharing your business, because we forget that we can't do anything by ourselves. And the same is true for business. There's a great metric that the average American small business single owner and doer equals about $45,000 a year. But the second that you have 4 people on your team, whether they're employees or contractors or vendors, it jumps to $450,000 a year. So
What?
yeah, yes.
That's a 10 times? Are you serious?
Yes. Yeah. The power of people and not doing it by yourself is incredible. So sharing your business just amplifies that to a different level. I'm hoping everyone's in a business that they enjoy or find value in, or love helping people with. So why wouldn't you tell people how excited you are? And sharing about your business is also about active listening, which I'm sure you're familiar with in what you do every day. So if you're listening all the time for how can I help somebody, there's always that opportunity to share about your business, or if not for them, a friend of theirs, or just to tell people what you're excited about. It changes everything, and also preps you when you have a big client that you're nervous to talk to. You've done all this talking about your business, so when it's time to go, you can just go.
So talking about the business and hiring staff are 2 different things.
Mm-hmm. But the connection I was making was that sharing your business with people and verbally talking to people about it is what creates all this momentum for what's possible with your business. So yeah, hiring people is totally different. And there's lots of ways to do that as well, but getting people on your team as soon as possible is obviously the game changer based on that statistic.
Wow.
And when you talk about your company and it reaches critical mass, you actually reach that tipping point where you cannot do it all by yourself. You have to bring on team. I recently experienced this actually in my consulting firm, where the depth of the consulting that I was doing required a technology consultant and it required a financial consultant. And in the past, where I have a base level experience, I would have muddled through it myself. I'm so busy that is not a piece I could take, 2 pieces I could not take on. So I brought on 2 consultants, one financial, one tech, that could help with that. And now I'm actually looking at pulling them onto my team page, onto my website, and starting to put the word out that full consulting solution actually is available through the firm. But I would not have had the confidence to do that before, to share in that way without those 2 consultants in place. So I do think that it's intertwined. It's not only just not all doing it yourself, but reaching that critical mass with yourself where I have to bring on team now. I have to do this now.
Yeah, and so many people in business are always like, how do I have more customers or more clients? And they're like, I need a Twitter strategy. I need a fancy email marketing. And I'm like, hold on. Have we maximized your actual network yet? Because when we look at so many of these businesses, the word of mouth and referral situation usually is the majority of the business that people are getting. And everybody wants to skip over doing that work and go right into, there must be some magic Instagram formula. And you really need to have that tipping point, as you mentioned, before all those other systems you've set up start to magnify each other. And the sharing your business part comes into, does everyone in your life know what you're doing and why it matters? And why does it matter to you? Like, that's the authentic, passionate story that people are looking for.
Exactly. And that consistency of communication is so important. So back to the idea of a metric, what does consistency look like? If you're setting up a SMART goal, your SMART goal has to have a metric in it. It's the M. So what is the measurable piece of that? How often are you going to be going out to your network? How many people in your existing network are you going to personally touch each day? Not blast out a Facebook message, but maybe go on LinkedIn and send an individual message. Hey, how you doing? Want to catch up on a virtual coffee? Would love to update, would love to hear about what you're doing. Always lead with them. Would love to hear about what you're doing and catch up and start having those conversations and deepening. But how many times are you going to do that? Because it's that piece where the goal slips. When you don't have a metric tied to the goal, you don't know what performance actually looks like. There's an idea, I want to talk to more people about my business. But when you actually tie that number to it, now you have something to hold yourself accountable to.
Yeah, and I really believe in the philosophy from the One Thing book of like, what are you doing today that will change your tomorrow? And how do we know if it's changing something if we're not measuring it? And people get so stuck on like, how do I even start to know what to measure? I'm like, just pick something. Wherever you start, like we're all making up that first forecast or that first number anyway, but at least it'll be a line in the sand from which you can then determine, was I close? Was I off? How do I need to change things? Creating a business isn't once you write it, it's done. It really is an always evolving, shifting thing. So these metrics become like your best friends in business because they're telling you all this stuff, like what you should look at, what you should change, what's on fire in good ways and bad ways.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to address too is the fear of looking at what the baseline is, what the current state is, like what's the real deal, brass tacks, facts, number to where I'm sitting today. To see, to develop that trend, because, it all starts with where are you at right now? And then the mindset of, okay, now let's go up.
Yeah. There's so many people who have a small business that are embarrassed to talk about the fact they've never looked at their budget or they've never looked at the status of how things are. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just something to like change because that will completely give you access and more power than you've ever had in your business before.
Yeah, avoidance is not king when it comes to that, right? So I've worked with a ton of people like this too. There was one lady I worked with, self-employed, and she's like, I haven't done my taxes in 4 years. And I'm like, well, you need to do your taxes now. And it's so funny because we had a whole session around her avoidance. She couldn't do it. It was just terrifying. She thought that she was going to owe all this money. And so her philosophy was, I'll just stick my head in the sand. And the funny thing is now, it's been about 6 months since that session. She is completely caught up on her taxes. She found out that she misfiled 5 years ago, got a huge refund that actually helped pay for what she was in the arrears for. And now she's working on buying a house and doing things that were not available to her as long as she was in avoidance with the head in the sand.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up the buying a house piece because we forget that running a business is about the other life that we want to be building. Like that's part of why we're doing it. And so sometimes a metric can even be, I'll know my business is successful if I can buy a house or if I'm getting to leave at 5 o'clock every day, because what's an important metric to me is getting back in time for that dinner or that family time. So the metrics don't all need to be about sales and success and more. It can also be about keeping your business in alignment with what you really want your dream life to look like as well.
I love what you just said right now, because I was just thinking, you said more and I went, sometimes the goal is less, less time at the office, less time, less stress, less feeling married to your job and not married to your spouse, and all those other things that tend to be neglected when you're really trying to build something. And I really like this idea too. That's really creative. I really have not thought about this before. So this is really stimulating for me, where I'm like, wow, I've never thought of it that way. Then the metric could be buying a house or paying off debt. Or for me, my metric, now that we're talking about this, my metric is time off.
Mm-hmm.
So I could easily work for an agency, and like you said, I could probably make more money doing it, have health insurance, all the benefits, but they don't want to give you a lot of time off. And my goal, my relaxation, my passion is travel.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be able to take at least 5 weeks a year, which is a difficult thing to do starting off in a new job if I wanted a job, right? So my metric for self-employment hasn't necessarily been financial. I'm probably making the same or maybe even less, but it's been the time off piece. It's been the flexibility. So, for our listeners listening in, I think that that's something to consider too. So my life isn't all about necessarily making money. I make money, but my time is really valuable to me.
And there's a term for that too, and it's value metrics. So what is in other than the hardcore number, it's what do you value and how do you measure performance against what you value? So that value might be time off. That value might be legacy. That value might be building a franchise. But attaching metrics to values makes them even stronger because you have a quantifiable goal for that attaches to those values. And that is when you can combine those two, the goal attainment probability goes through the roof because you've tied the two most important things together, and that's the trackable metric for goal attainment and the value or the emotional tie or what's at stake for attaining or not attaining that metric.
Well, I think it's so important to have that combination because being in business is not a walk in the park. So for me, when it's a bad day or when, feeling like, how are we going to get through this? Remembering what my goals are tied to changes it because the business isn't about me then. It's really about these other things. And it's something that I use and recommend for my clients of how to stay motivated when every other thing is telling you, like, let's just stay under the covers today.
Yeah. I was just thinking of a visual. I'm a very big fan of what I call positive triggers. So we're all aware of being triggered and trigger. But what people don't really realize is it's happening subconsciously no matter what you do. So I'm constantly, like, in my office that I don't work at anymore, but in the office that I actually have, I literally have positive triggers in every corner in all of my eye space. So let's say I'm in session and I'm kind of like, I don't really know where to go from here. I have stuff set up all around my office that'll cue to me, have you asked this question? Have you gone there? Have you gone there? And so, and I think that it's really important sometimes. I have this beautiful, I love it. It's this little like yield sign, and it's in my bathroom in my bedroom. And it's right when I leave the bathroom. I have to look at it every day. And it says, you choose this. So I give myself 100% responsibility for my life, right? Like every day when I'm done getting ready for work and I leave my bathroom, I have to see that. And it's like, all right, it's conscious decision time. I choose this. Whatever is happening today is my choice. And so setting up these positive triggers for what you're saying, this is really what it's coming to my mind. If it's a Post-it note, I love giving people art projects in therapy. So I'll be like, go to Michael's, you're going craft shopping, and then make yourself one of those wooden plaques, get some stencils that says, my value and my metric is free time. My value and my metric is money, which is a great goal. My value and my metric is leaving legacy. My value and my metric, but setting things up and then putting it somewhere you can see that every day, right? So like you said, I don't want to get out of bed today. And it's like, my value for my metric is if I'm in bed, I'm not being productive. I'm not making a difference. I'm not growing or moving forward. And so therefore, if this is truly what I want, I probably can't stay in bed today. Or I'm also a very big fan of taking care of yourself. So as your therapist, I'd probably say, stay in bed today because I want you to rest. I want you to replenish and I want you to be ready. But tomorrow you're going to hit it. So
And a metric looks like when I am making the conscious choice for self-care, the time that I get up is X. When I am making the conscious decision for the ultimately productive day, my wake up time is Y. I will allow myself to hit the snooze alarm Z number of times before I get up. And here's what my routine will look like. Read one article, journal 300 words. So it's putting that number to those things that really makes it powerful. And when you add that measure, and metric is, basically short for measure. When you add that ruler to it, that measuring stick to it, then you can actually say, okay, did I black and white do this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no. Okay, so I went to here. All right, is this the new metric because the other one was too high of a bar to meet at that given time? Or is there a way to make changes to make that metric happen next month or something along those lines? Did I, and this is another thing I run across with clients, is they don't set a metric, they set a vision. So their metric is so big that it freaks them out. And therefore they stop. Therefore they don't look at the increments on the way to that thing. They just refuse, they hold back. They refuse to celebrate. They refuse to stop grinding until they meet this fictitious number that they just pulled out of their heads because that number came from some should, but it's their mountain. And it's okay to have a mountain, but realize that it's the vision and not the goal. The goal is the increment. The goal is the incremental metric that you can say, I'm hitting this, I'm hitting this, I'm hitting this. And even if that goal is do one push up, you've done the one. Yeehaw. But if you can crunch out two in the next week without getting on your knees, great. Now you've done two. I can't do any without getting on my knees. but when you set this mountaintop of 20 push-ups a day and you've never done a single push-up, you start to go that single push-up and it's like, why did I even set that goal in the first place? And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So metrics need to be a part of that SMART goal. I mentioned SMART and I didn't actually define the acronym for our listeners. It's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So is it specific? I mean, does it get really detailed? Is there a metric tied to it? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it something that, within given the time that you actually have, is it attainable? Is it realistic for you to even be going for this? The 20 push-ups a day is not realistic for the person who has not maybe done one push-up. And time bound, by when are you going to do this? So if you have those things in line, then you really set yourself up for success because you give yourself very clear guidelines.
Yeah, and they can be they really are our partners in telling us, almost encouraging us sometimes too, right? If you hit them, you get to celebrate that win, as you mentioned, and take that moment. And if you don't, then it's really just a time to have an honest conversation of like, okay, cool, how do we do it anyway? There's a lot of people who relate not hitting a goal or a metric with failure. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity to reassess like what was missing. What did I forget? What we did we not think about? What could we have done better? There's a way to make anything you want to happen. And that means that you have to have a lot of honest conversations about what you need, or as was mentioned earlier, what to remove to actually make it possible.
So what kinds of conversations do you have with your clients when it comes to this, when it's time to sit down and have the metric? Because the episode, title is Erasing the Fear of Critical Metrics, right? So I'm so curious about how you facilitate this conversation in a way that our listeners could be like, oh yeah, that's me, or oh no, I'm on the right track.
Great question. So depending on what the metric is, there's obviously different stories people have about this, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this a lot in both of your careers, of whether it's a money-based story or am I worth it story, and really looking at what's possible. People put so much of past experience into what they're creating in the future. So just sitting down to look at, if we throw a number out there, whether it's a sales goal or a number of clients or any other metric that would equal success for their business, what about it scares you? Or why are you not saying like, yes, we can do this, let's go? And when we break that down, it usually reveals something that's really either monumental or in someone's blind spot about why they might be blocked. What I find tends to happen is that usually it's just really people not being clear on whatever is tied to that metric in regards to value or the messaging or how they can translate that to their customers or clients so that they see, oh, it is actually possible to do that this way. The two things I tend to do the most are breaking numbers down into that daily number. So if you need to, hit a $500,000 a year sales goal, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? You can know if you're on track or on pace. And the other part is most people aren't charging enough. So when we look at how you can get to that number, I'm often telling people to raise their metrics or to set a tier of metrics. What does your break-even metrics look like? What do your base goal look like? And what does a push-it goal look like? And that can free people up from being so petrified about not hitting one number. Now we kind of have three that we can use as a scale to know if we're at least in the zone. Different business owners have different level of risk and different level of drive. And it's okay to build your business for whatever level you want it to be. I really believe in letting people have, the tiny business they have, or just the business that works for them to hit those goals. So many people this year have gone into their own business because they've either had to or needed to get creative. And you don't need to be making these $1 million, we're going to sell it someday businesses. You can make one that really is self-sustaining for yourself and what your goals are. So how do we set those up so you can look at them and know that, again, they're tied to that vision that you have of what you can change. So it's a lot of just breaking it down and having the conversations about where you're uncomfortable, what would feel better, why, how does this change the goal? And then I'm also always talking to clients about why they're doing this business, why for them, why for their customers, why for their family, their community. And having that why also, can often motivate people to be a little bit braver in their metrics than they were to start.
I love it. I love it. I love that it really instills the confidence that people need to allow their businesses to be what it can become. And by giving it not only the baseline, not only the forecast, but here's what it actually looks like. So it makes it very real.
Yeah, this has been really inspiring to me. I think I'm definitely going to sit down after this and start looking at a few of these metrics and like you said, keeping it simple. If I've had 0 per week, if I have 1 per week, for me, that's 100% difference, right? And then how can I, from 1 month to the next month, turn 100 to 200%? And I'm also going to consider what you said about staff. I think that's a really important insight that is not obvious. I don't think that that's something that people just know. So thank you for bringing that up as well.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
My pleasure. It's a game changer.
It is. Thank you for being on the show, Kara. It's been a pleasure having you.
Yes, thank you so much. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And if our listeners want to reach out and check you out, where would they find you?
They can find me at karaduffy.com or at Kara_Duffy on Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out using communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Hansen, management consultant.
And I'm Christine Salvo, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified mediator, and certified hypnotherapist. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Hansen, management consultant, with me co-host Christine Salvo, therapist, certified mediator, and certified hypnotherapist.
Hello.